mantras of our Divine Mother. Our Divine Mother says, whatever we do, we must always remember our aim. With my love and blessings, says our Divine Mother.
May thy will be integrally done, O Lord. It is my happiness and my law.
Words of our Lord Sri Aurobindo from the collective works of our Lord Sri Aurobindo, Volume 3, Book Letters on Himself, Book 35. Topic: Sri Aurobindo's Force. Subtopic: Concreteness of the Force. Page 479. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, the invisible force producing tangible results, both inward and outward, is the whole meaning of the integral yogic consciousness. Your question about integral yoga, bringing merely a feeling of power without any result, was really very strange. Who would be satisfied with such a meaningless hallucination and call it power? If we had not had thousands of experiences showing that the power within could alter the mind, develop its powers, add new ones, bring in new ranges of knowledge, master the vital movements, change the character, influence men and things, control the conditions and functionings of the body, work as a concrete dynamic force on other forces, modify events, etc., we would not speak of it as we do. Moreover, it is not only in its results and in its moments that the force is tangible and concrete. When I speak of feeling force or power, I do not mean simply having a vague sense of it, but feeling it concretely and consequently being able to direct it, manipulate it, watch its movement, be conscious of its mass and intensity, and in the same way of that of other, perhaps opposing forces. All these things are possible and usual by the development of integral yoga. It is not, unless it is a supramental force, a power that acts without conditions and limits. The conditions and limits under which integral yoga or sadhana has to be worked out are not arbitrary or capricious. They arise from the nature of things. These, including the will, receptivity, assent, self-opening, and surrender of the sadhak, have to be respected by the yoga force unless it receives a sanction from the Supreme to override everything and get something done, but the sanction is sparingly given. It is only if the supramental power came fully down, not merely sent its influences through the overmind, that things could be very radically altered in this respect. And that is why my main effort is directed towards that object, for then the sanction would not be rare. For the law of truth would be at work, not constantly balanced by the law of ignorance. Still, the yoga force is always tangible and concrete in the way I have described and has tangible results, but it is invisible, not like a blow given or the rush of a motor car knocking somebody down, which the physical senses can at once perceive. How is the mere physical mind to know that it is there and working? By its results? But how can it know the results were that of the yoga force and not of something else? One of two things it must do. Either it must allow the consciousness to go inside, to become aware of the inner things, to believe in and experience the invisible and the supraphysical, and then, by experience, by the opening of new capacities, it becomes conscious of these forces and can see, follow, and use their workings just as the scientist uses the unseen forces of nature. Or one must have faith and watch and open oneself, and then it will begin to see how things happen. It will notice that when the force was called in, they began after a time to be the result, then repetitions, more clear and tangible results, increasing frequency, increasing consistency of results, a feeling and awareness of the force at work, until the experience becomes daily, regular, normal, complete. And Lord Aurobindo says these are the two main methods. One, internal working from in outward. The other, external, working from outside and calling the inner force out till it penetrates and is sensible in the exterior consciousness. But neither can be done if one insists always on the extrovert attitude, the external concrete only, and refuses to join to it the internal concrete, or if the physical mind at every step raises a dance of doubts which refuses to allow nascent experience to develop. Even the scientist carrying out a new experience would never succeed if he allowed his mind to behave in that way. When the Divine Mother said it was just a trick of reversing the consciousness, she meant that instead of allowing always the external mind to interfere and assert its own ordinary customary point of view, it should turn itself round, admit that things may work from in outwards, and keep itself sufficiently quiet to see that developing and being done. For then an inner mind shows itself which is capable of following and being the instrument of the invisible forces. It is not that you are incapable of it, for it was several times on the point of being done, but your external mind has interfered always, questioning, doubting, asking for something more external, not waiting for the moment to continue, for the inward to externalize itself and make itself concrete. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, that is why I object to this worship of doubt. It is not that I used not to have doubts myself more formidable than any you have ever thought of, but I did not allow them to interfere with the development of my experience. I let it continue until it had sufficient body for me to know what it was and what it could bring me. Date 2nd August 1932. Continuation on page 484, subtopic No Miraculous Force. I tried to convince X that it was your force, says a sadhak, that cured Y. But X said, what about instances in which the divine force has failed? Why does it succeed in some cases and not in others? For this, our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, the mistake is to think that it must be either a miraculous force or else none. There is no miraculous force, and I do not deal in miracles. The word divine here is out of place if it is taken as an always omnipotently acting power. Yogic force is then better. It simply means a higher consciousness using its power, a spiritual and supraphysical force acting on the physical world directly. One has to train the instrument to be a channel of this force. It works also according to a certain law and under certain conditions. The divine does not work arbitrarily or as a thaumaturge. He acts upon the world along the lines that have been fixed by the nature and the purpose of the world we live in by an increasing action of the thing that has to manifest, not by a sudden change or disregard of all the conditions of the work to be done. If it were not so, there would be no need of yoga or time or human action or instruments or of a master and disciples or of a descent or anything else. It could simply be a matter for the Tathastu and nothing more. But that would be irrational if you like, and worse than irrational, childish. This does not mean that interventions, things apparently miraculous, do not happen, they do. But all cannot be like that. Question: I do not see how you can deny the reality of this force. Were you able to work with such vigor before you came here? He said, yes, I could work a lot, so much so that people were astounded. Was that Sri Aurobindo's force? What is Sri Aurobindo's force? It is not a personal property of this body or mind. It is a higher force used by me or acting through me. The sadhak says, and Tagore and Lenin and other greats, is the divine force working in them too? For this our Lord says, of course it is a divine force, for there is only one force acting in the world, but it acts according to the nature of the instrument. Yogic force is different from others because it is a special power of the spiritual consciousness. The sadhak says, it may not be Sri Aurobindo's force, but how can I exclude the possibility of the divine force behind? Because one is an atheist, it doesn't mean the divine is undivine against him. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says there was an obvious intervention in the case he speaks of, but the agent or the process could not be determined if one knew all the circumstances. Such interventions are frequent. For example, my uncle's daughter was at her last gasp. The doctors have gone away telling him there was no more to be done. He simply sat down to pray. As soon as he had finished, the death symptoms were suspended. The girl recovered without further treatment. It was a case of typhoid fever. Several cases of that kind have come within my personal observation. X concluded, "Oh, if you say everything is being done at the divine impulsion, I have nothing to say. But you cannot say I'm working because Sri Aurobindo is constantly at my back. What can I say against this?" Sri Aurobindo says, "I am not very particular about that. It is a personal question and depends on X feelings. I certainly put force on him for the development and success of his poetry, and the rest I do not want to say anything."